South Korea heads to the polls on Tuesday to elect its next president in a snap election. You might remember the saga that led up to this. Former President Yoon Suk Yeol was impeached and removed from office after very so briefly placing the country under martial law back in December. It was extraordinary at the time, wasn't it?
Well, right now, polls are showing that Liberal candidate Lee Jae-Myung is in the lead to win the top job, which he narrowly missed out on in the 2022 election. Well, joining us now from Washington is South Korea analyst and non-resident fellow at the Atlantic Council, Kayla Orta. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us, Kayla.
Thank you for having me.
Now, the polls, as I mentioned, they're pointing to Lee from the opposition Democratic Party to win the presidency. Is this a foregone conclusion, or could there be another candidate that might come from behind?
No, it's an excellent question. I think many in South Korea are starting to say the same thing, that this could be a foregone conclusion. Right now, Lee Jae-Myung is ahead in the polls, at least these pre-election polls, at right now 50%. The next runner-up from the Conservative Party, the People's Power Party, the PPP, is Moon-soo, who as of yet is still quite far behind, only about 40% of the polls. But he has made up some of the distance between him and the front runner. So, as we saw with the last election, it was quite close. So even though we're seeing this trend, I think many are waiting to see what Tuesday holds.
What makes him such a likelihood candidate to win the presidency?
Yeah, so Lee Jae-Myung has been very interesting in the political space in Korea over the past couple of years. As you mentioned, he lost the last presidential election in 2022 by less than 1% of the vote. This was the closest in South Korean's political history, democratic political history. And he stayed very active in the scene. He's been a strong opposition voice during the Yoon Suk's administration. And in particular, he had stayed very relevant. He's made sure that his voice was heard across different conversations and really pitching himself as the counter to Yoon, which may play in his favor during this presidential election.
Now, you mentioned former President Yoon. He left office in quite a turbulent time as well. What do you think would be the priority for Lee if he was to win the presidency? Would it be to try to instill some sort of trust in the government?
I think that's going to be one of the main points that he'll have to focus on. Right now, it's very intense time in South Korea's domestic political space. I think whoever comes next into the presidential position will need to rebuild that confidence in the government. Many in South Korea were shocked by martial law and have continued to feel very frustrated by all of the turmoil that has ensued in the past 6 months. Additionally, he'll be charged with trying to bolster the economic environment in Korea, trying to help encourage economic growth, as well as rebalancing and reestablishing what he may see as the priorities for South Korea's foreign affairs additionally, and an environment that's increasingly unstable. So I think it will be an environment where he will really have to put forward, whoever the next president is, will have to put forward very strong policies on multiple fronts in many ways in 3 different areas at the same time.
Okay, so former President Yoon was quite a supporter of Washington, wasn't he? But then, times have changed now, and over the last few months or so, South Korea has just been one of the many countries that have been slapped with tariffs, South Korea being a very close ally of Washington, unexpected from Washington. But Washington has also pressed Seoul to pay more for the 28,500 troops stationed there as well. What do you think the new president will do to try to either counter this, or will they go along with it?
It's a good question. I think we're still waiting to see what the policies will be. Traditionally speaking, liberal presidents have pushed back and in some ways tried to rebalance relationship with Washington, unlike the previous administration, which was seen as very much going along in very close partnership with Washington. We might see, if a liberal president comes in, a bit of pushback. However, Lee Jae-Myung has put himself out there as being what he refers to as a pragmatic potential president, in the sense that many of the more traditional left-leaning policies may not be where he takes things. He might decide that actually, yes, we should maintain a very consistent, strong political, obviously the military relationship between the US and South Korea has always been very strong, but maybe maintain a political tightness with Washington. At the same time, maybe even looking to continue the US, Korea, Japan trilateral relations into the next administration. So we'll have to see, he is the front runner. We'll have to see what he comes forward, if he comes into office, and if he really decides to put this pragmatic foreign policy to the test.
Kayla Orta, South Korea analyst and non-resident fellow at the Atlantic Council. Thank you so much for sharing your insight with us.
Thank you for having me.